In Venezuela, the second day of peace talks between the Colombian government and the National Liberation Army continues. Peru's political crisis spreads to international relations. President Pedro Castillo thanked Mexico for its support following Congress' refusal to prevent his participation in the Pacific Alliance Summit. As part of his international tour, the president of Cuba, Miguel Diaz-Canel, held a meeting with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin in which they assessed the roadmap for comprehensive cooperation to confront Western sanctions. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Delegates from the Colombian government and the National Liberation Army insurgency advanced in the peace talks that resumed in Caracas this Monday. For the second consecutive day, the delegations headed by the High Commissioner for Peace, Iván Danilo Rueda, and the head of the peace delegation of the ELN, Paulo Beltrán, are holding talks for peace in Colombia. For this day, the parties are accompanied by representatives of the Colombian political life, as well as several peace guarantors, among them representatives of Norway, Cuba, and Venezuela. It is hoped that at the end of the rounds of dialogue in the Latin American nation, new spaces for meeting and solution to the internal conflicts in Colombia will be created. Aurelio Carbonell, a member of the ELN peace delegation, said that after the first round of talks, those present have positive expectations about the process.
It has been something positive. We have positive expectations, and if you look at the joint declaration that was signed yesterday between the government and the ELN delegation, it marks a route, it marks a course. It sends a positive message that we're going to make maximum efforts to advance in the changes in Colombia and therefore in peace for Colombia.
In Venezuela, the 19th Congress of the Latin American and Caribbean Continental Students Organization is on the way on its second day in the city of Caracas. Participants representing over 30 students, federations, and organizations from around the world are meeting under the slogan "United and in Resistance," and North America is indeed possible. The student movements gathering in Caracas aim at consolidating unity in their struggle against imperialism and to exchange views on all levels of education in the Latin American region. In Brazil, the Liberal Party of Jair Bolsonaro asked the Superior Electoral Court to annul the votes of the electronic ballot boxes used in the last presidential elections. In this context, the outgoing president's party insists the machines are old, which, in its opinion, casts doubt on the reliability of the electoral process, despite the fact that the court has already found otherwise. The complaint of the Liberal Party covers 279,000 ballot boxes used in the second round. In this regard, the Minister of the Supreme Court and President of the Superior Electoral Court, Alexander de Moraes, urged Bolsonaro's party to present within 24 hours the audit used to allege the annulment of votes. Brazil's National Museum has concluded the first stage of its reconstruction. The facade of the building has been restored and is now accessible to the public. The museum was severely damaged by a fire in 2018. A former royal palace, it has an important historical meaning in 2022, the 200th year of Brazilian independence. The museum held the largest collection of natural history in the South American giant, consisting of 20 million items, among them collections of insects, arthropods, dinosaur fossils, Egyptian mummies, and indigenous ceramics. Visitors can now access the building to see the facade and view an exhibition in the entrance hall dedicated to Brazilian minerals.
One of the most significant moments was when we were recently able to open the historic facade to the public for visits. It was a great victory conquered with great effort from the people that are helping the museum and also to inaugurate this room, thanks to the Bell Cultural Institute, which made it possible to have peace like this one.
This palace was the home of a royal imperial family, the only one in Brazil, which was also the royal family of Brazil, Portugal, and Algarve. Later on, when Brazil became independent, it was the home of the first emperor of Brazil, Peter I, and later of the second emperor, Peter II.
The President of Peru, Pedro Castillo, thanked Mexico for its support in the face of the Congress' refusal to prevent his participation in the Pacific Alliance Summit. The head of state indicated that assuming the pro-tempore presidency of the Pacific Alliance is a commitment to promote the advancement of the countries of the region. Likewise, Castillo said that he will help the Andean nation in its growth for the benefit of the citizens and other members of the alliance. In this context, President Castillo expressed his deep appreciation for the support provided by his Mexican counterpart Andrés Manuel López Obrador. In this same context, Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador confirmed the suspension of the Pacific Alliance Summit after the Peruvian Congress did not authorize President Pedro Castillo to travel to Mexico City. López Obrador informed that the members of the Pacific Alliance will try to hold the summit in Peru in the first week of December, after the situation that the country is going through. The President confirmed the visit of the Presidents of Chile, Colombia and Ecuador, who are seeking to join the trade bloc. He also announced that next November 28th, he will meet with the President of Costa Rica, Rodrigo Chavez, and the President of Honduras, Xiomara Castro. On Tuesday, Peru's Constitutional Court overturned the process opened by the Congress Subcommittee of Constitutional Accusations against President Pedro Castillo for alleged treason. According to local media, the ruling states that the annulment was issued because the agreement against Castillo violates the right due to motivation in parliamentary proceedings. The court's decision comes amidst the visit of a high-level delegation of the Organization of American States to Peru, following the implementation of the democratic charter requested by Castillo weeks ago, in an effort to address the governance crisis and the impeachment attempts against him. In Spain, the death of renowned Cuban singer-songwriter Pablo Milanés was confirmed. Milanés died at the age of 79 after living in the Spanish capital since 2017 to receive treatment for an oncohematological disease. Composer and guitarist Pablo Milanés Arias was born on February 24, 1945 in Bayamo, Granma. After finishing his studies at the Municipal Conservatory of Havana, Milanés dedicated himself to perfecting composition, harmony, and guitar performance with important teachers. Among the most outstanding achievements of the artist stands out his participation in the foundation of the popular musical movement La Nueva Trova Cubana, together with Silvio Rodriguez and Noel Nicola. Milanés recorded his first album in 1969 and wrote over 400 songs during his musical career. Pablo Milanés leaves behind him a rich legacy in Cuban and Latin American music. Let's take a short break, but first remember you can follow us on TikTok at the account at teleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. On Tuesday, the President of Cuba, Miguel Diaz-Canel, met with his counterpart Vladimir Putin in the Kremlin as part of his official visit to that nation. During the meeting, the Cuban head of state pointed out that both Russia and Cuba are subject to unjust and arbitrary sanctions stemming from the same enemy. Diaz-Canel emphasized that the U.S. empire has also manipulated an important part of the world, mobilizing a battery of sanctions against Moscow. In this context, the Cuban head of state indicated that Washington manipulated the Kremlin's warnings about the aggression maintained by the Kiev regime against the Ukrainian people. In this regard, Putin thanked Diaz-Canel and pointed out that Cuba can count on Russia's cooperation. And also, as part of his official visit to Moscow, Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel condemned Western unilateral sanctions against Russia at a plenary session of the State Duma on Tuesday. The Cuban head of state also added that the causes of the Ukrainian conflict should be sought in the aggressive policies of the United States and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization's expansion to the borders with the Russian Federation. President Diaz-Canel stressed that Cuba, while repeatedly condemning sanctions against Moscow, was in favor of a negotiated solution to the conflict in Ukraine.
Cuba strongly condemns the sanctions that are imposed today unilaterally and unfairly on the Russian Federation. The cause of the current conflict in this area must be found in the aggressive policy of the United States and in the expansion of NATO towards the borders of Russia. which Cuba has systematically denounced in international forums. Cuba, as it has expressed on many occasions, is in favor of a negotiated solution to the current conflict.
As part of their official agenda, Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin participated on Tuesday in the inauguration ceremony of a monument to the late Cuban leader Fidel Castro in Moscow. The Russian president added that Castro is rightly considered one of the most famous and charismatic leaders of the 20th century, a truly legendary personality. In Kazakhstan, the 19th international meeting on Syria is underway in the capital Astana, with Turkey, Russia and Iran as guarantor countries for the talks. This two-day meeting started on this Tuesday, November 22nd, and it included on its first day of activities bilateral and trilateral consultations. The plenary session will be held on the second day to announce the final declaration of the meeting. On Tuesday, some heads of delegations are expected to talk to the press to share their views on the issues discussed. At least one person has been killed and 30 wounded when a car bomb exploded in a police compound in the southern Thailand. According to Narathiwat Governor Sanan Pongakson, Tuesday's blast came shortly after a suspect drove a car into the police accommodation and abandoned it. The governor added police were checking security camera footage to identify the suspect. The fatality was a police officer, while the injured included both civilians and officers. Southern Thailand has witnessed a violent rebellion since 2004, as fighters in the Muslim-majority provinces of Pattani, Jala, Narathiwat, and parts of Songkhla battle for greater autonomy from the state. The National Institute of Statistics of Spain reported an increase of more than 15% in the price of food during the month of October this year, a record figure in almost 3 decades. In this context, the cost of living in Europe due to the energy crisis sparked by the war in Ukraine has put more than 13 million Spanish people on the brink of poverty, while inflation has further affected the purchasing power of the poorest sectors of society. According to the British NGO Oxfam, this situation has led to an increase in the number of people queuing for food. For its part, the Spanish government has been allocating economic resources to alleviate conditions. However, charitable organizations point out that the measures adopted are not enough, arguing that the so-called hunger queues are already growing throughout the country. Britain's King Charles III welcomed South African President Cyril Ramaphosa to London on Tuesday as he hosts the first state visit of his reign. The South African head of state, who arrived at the welcome ceremony with the Prince and Princess of Wales, William and Catherine, is in the United Kingdom for 3 days of high-level talks. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak also attended the ceremony along with Foreign Minister Secretary James Cleverly and Home Secretary Suella Braverman. South African President in his visit to the UK stressed the importance of the climate fund agreed on at the recent COP27 in Cairo, saying that it should not be seen as a charity but as a compensation. Ramaphosa also calls on the UK to make its voice heard and be an example to international organizations to be more inclusive and better respond to the needs of countries with developing economies.
It is compensation for the harm done and the harm yet to be done to people in developing economies as a consequence of the industrialization that wealthy countries have had over many years. We look to the United Kingdom to raise its voice in favor of more representative and more inclusive international bodies, including the United Nations Security Council and global financial institutions. These bodies need to be better equipped to respond to the needs of countries with developing economies.
We have more news coming up after a final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back from the south. In Chad, at least 10 soldiers are killed after an attack by militants of the terrorist group Boko Haram near the Nigerian border. According to a presidential spokesman, the jihadist group attacked an army post in the west of the country in the Chad Lake region. Following this incident, the transitional government has pledged to double the size of its army in order to meet security challenges, including terrorist threats. The Boko Haram insurgency, which broke out in northeastern Nigeria in 2009, has killed more than 350,000 people and forced millions to flee their homes. Authorities in Mali have banned the activities of all non-governmental organizations financed or supported by France. Transitional Government Prime Minister Colonel Abdoulaye Maïga made the announcement Monday night on his social media platforms, following the suspension of their development and aid granted by France to Mali. The French executive justified its decision, saying the Malian military authorities are using that aid to finance the Wagner Group, which is a group of Russian military specialists. Malian authorities said such allegations are false and that the presence of Russian military collaborators in Mali complies with the terms of a military agreement with Moscow. Let us review Tuesday's actions at the Qatar 2022 World Cup. Saudi Arabia stunned Lionel Messi's Argentina on Tuesday, beating the two-time winners 2-1 in one of the biggest upsets in World Cup history. Salem Al-Dawsari hit a stunning winner to sink the red-hot favorites, bringing the South American side's 36-match unbeaten run to a shuddering halt. The win was fully deserved after Saudi Arabia came from behind after Saleh Al-Sari cancelled out an early Lionel Messi penalty. Playing a risky high defense line, the athletic Saudis rode their luck in the first half when 3 times Argentina had the ball in the net, only to be denied by an offside goal. But in a chaotic start to the second half, the Saudis swarmed all over Lionel Scaloni's team and scored twice as the Arab nation beat the South Americans for the first time in 5 attempts. Argentinian fans left the stadium disappointed but looking forward to the matches of the group to secure passing to the next round.
Anger, especially because the match was clearly ours. I mean, they got through twice. Both times it was a goal, so it was a terrible disappointment.
We look forward to Saturday's game against Mexico and the final game against Poland on Wednesday. This is just the beginning, so congratulations to the Saudi Arabian people who were able to reach the goal twice and score 2 goals.
In the second game of the day, Denmark and Tunisia played to a goalless draw in the first 45 minutes of the game. Tunisia had the best chances to score, but Schmeichel denied it. During the second half, Denmark had the best chances to score, but the video assistant referee, the Tunisian goalkeeper, and the post prevented the goal for them. Both teams opened the World Cup with the first goalless draw of the tournament. Mexico also drew goalless against Poland on Tuesday in the first day of Group C of the World Cup, in a duel in which goalkeeper Memo Ochoa was decisive, saving a penalty kick by Robert Lewandowski with this result. The group is led by Saudi Arabia, which scored the big blow in the World Cup with a 2-1 win over Argentina, followed by Mexico and Poland. Olivier Giroud scored twice as World Cup holders France recovered from the shock of going behind the thumb Australia 4-1 in their opener in Qatar. Veteran striker Giroud drew level with Thierry Henry's all-time record of 51 goals for France. Adrien Rabiot and Kylian Mbappé also scored after Australia took a surprise 9th-minute lead through Craig Goodwin. And actions will continue on Wednesday in football's biggest international event. The first game of the day is Morocco versus Croatia, 2018 second place. Germany, 4-time winner of the tournament, will open Group E against Japan. The squad led by Luis Enrique will debut against Costa Rica on the third game of the day, and finishing actions in Qatar's fourth day will be Belgium against Canada. And as the hearts of millions of fans live the emotions of the Qatar 2022 World Cup, teleSUR joins this sporting event from the field, a show that brings news, analysis, reviews, and more to our audience. Don't miss it. Our show airs at 1 p.m. local time in Caracas and 12 p.m. New York. Remember, from the field, only on teleSUR. We have come to the end of this newspaper. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For teleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.